Hi, welcome to this week's episode of the Solutions Prescribers podcast. Today, we're going to talk about validation and the power of validation when it's an inquisitive validation. And what do I mean by that is that oftentimes we have situations where somebody comes and they're angry. They're angry at us, angry at our practice, angry at one of our team members, angry at a situation. And then we just go, what do I say? How do I give him space without agreeing, or give him space without fighting? And it's that. How can it become more inquisitive versus our fight or flight? And let's talk about that. Is oftentimes when something comes up to us, we can react. We usually react in one of two ways. We either fight with the patient, fight with the client, or we have that flight mode, which is, yes, whatever you say, I'm so sorry, whatever you say. But we have another thing that we can do, which is reason. We can reason with our patients. We can reason with our clients. We can minimize the emotion and slow it down. And that's exactly what validation does in this process of somebody being upset, is that if you can validate the patient correctly, the client correctly, you can slow down the high emotions. You can slow down the pace of the conversation and get more, turn an emotional conversation into a more logical conversation. And so then how do we do this? How do we do this appropriately when we're in a situation of fight or flight? Let me first talk about the benefits of a negative emotion. The benefits of an objection, of a concern, is that if handled correctly, you can turn a concern into a strength. You can turn an angry client into a loyal client because they've experienced a negative emotion with you and they've realized you guys can handle it. They've realized we can get through hard stuff. And so the loyalty increases. So it's not bad if you have a bad experience once. It's only bad if you constantly are having a bad experience. So don't see that one bad experience or that one bad comment or that negative interaction as, oh, this is done. More take advantage of the opportunity to convert a tough situation into a loyal client or a positive situation. And you do that once again via validating. And remember, as we discussed in another episode, is that validation is not tied to a solution. And that's crucial in this situation because oftentimes when something comes up that we don't know how to handle, we go, I don't know how to handle this, so I'm going to flee or I'm going to fight. Versus it doesn't matter what the solution is. Let me just validate the situation that's going on right now so the emotions can come down. And maybe together we can collaborate with the solution. Because maybe I don't have a solution, but together we can come up with a solution. Okay, so there's 3 steps to make sure that we're doing this appropriately to be able to slow down once again, calm down the emotions, and go into logic. And that is, number 1, you acknowledge. You acknowledge the fact that they are reaching out to you, the fact that they're connecting with you, the fact that they're speaking with you. So I'm going to use the example of somebody calling in. And they call me as, let's say I'm the practice manager, and they're saying, Moises, I cannot believe you guys are still in business. You guys have not been, I've been calling your desk over and over, your front desk, and Maggie is not answering the calls, and she's just not being responsible. And I haven't heard back from her, and I've left several messages, or you guys are just the worst. The fight response to me would be like, you know what? We will continue to be in business without you because we're very successful. And I just start fighting with him. Like, how dare you give me a call, right? The flight would be like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe Maggie did that. I'm going to talk to Maggie. I'm going to make sure that this is unacceptable. I'm going to have to let her go. And I just go into this flight, or please come in and I'll give that for free. We start giving things away, right? The reason part of it, which is I'm going to acknowledge you, is like, thank you so much. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. That's what I'll say. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. Thank you so much for letting me know about the situation. That's the first step that I do. It's interesting. Sometimes when I say thank you, they start calming down. Thank you so much for reaching out and letting me know. Yeah, you betcha. And then I'll talk about the second step in a minute. But let me stay in the first step about acknowledging. Sometimes they're really angry and they start screaming and they're even swearing, right? I've been in situations where that's the case. So how do you acknowledge that? Thank you so much for swearing at me. You don't say that, right? But a way to calm things down is I go, you know what? I appreciate you speaking with me or letting me know, and And I appreciate the candor. I know sometimes it's hard to be very, very transparent and very candor. So I appreciate you being so candor and transparent with me. And usually what I have found is that they start calming down. They go, yeah, I'm being very candor. I don't need to take it over the top. And so thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for calling. Thank you so much for contacting me, for letting me know, for this conversation, whatever it is. The second step of this inquisitive validation is what's key. This is what makes the difference between slowing it down or keeping emotions high. And that is acknowledging or validating the right thing. So in this case, I use a trigger word to be able to get into this mindset. I'm going to share with you my trigger word, but you can use any other trigger word you like. But I say it makes complete sense that, and then what makes sense? What really makes sense? What are they really calling about? They're not angry at Maggie because Maggie's not answering the calls. They're angry at Maggie because they can't book an appointment. That's what they're angry about. Now, in this case, I'd say it makes complete sense. You want to make sure that we are available to be able to answer your calls and get you on the schedule. Did I get that right? And they're gonna be like, yep. We acknowledge the root cause of their concern, the root cause of their anger. I like to use the example of toddlers. I have children, and so when they were younger, if they were angry, they said, "I don't love you. You're the worst dad in the world." And then it'd make no sense to me as a dad to talk to my toddler by saying, "How dare you say that you don't love me after I've changed your diapers and I have my sleepless nights," and we start arguing about the fact that he said, "I don't love you," or that I'm a bad dad. The reality is you need a nap. You're hungry. Just go to sleep. And the root cause, that's what I need to focus on. So it makes no sense if I start arguing with my patients on the upper level when I need to just be addressing the root cause, and that calms things down because, okay, they get me. They know exactly why I'm upset. Yeah, I want to get on the schedule, so just get me on the freaking schedule. The great thing, going back to 1 and 2, is when I acknowledge and they go, it makes complete sense that, and I address that, is oftentimes I don't know what's going on. I don't know, and which takes me to my third step. We ask permission to ask open-ended questions. So I say, hey, it makes complete sense. You want to make sure that you get on the schedule, that you get booked, and that you're able to get the services. Did I get that right? Yes, great. May I ask a couple of questions so I can better understand what's happened? Yes. And then you start asking the questions. For all I know, he's been calling the wrong address, and Maggie's waiting for phone calls, and no one's calling us because he's been calling a different location. For all I know, he's called during the holiday or during a time that we're closed, and Maggie has not been able to answer because she's not at the office. For all I know, Maggie actually has not been answering the phone calls, and now I have to talk to Maggie. Regardless, I'm not throwing Maggie under the bus. I'm keeping the status until I know really what's going on. Once again, don't provide the solution. Validate and acknowledge. So the 3 steps to validate and acknowledge is like, thank you so much for letting me know. Thank you so much for reaching out. It makes complete sense that you want to make sure that when you're calling us, that you get on the books, that you're scheduled. Did I get that right? Yes, great. If they say no, that's not it. Okay, great. Then let me ask. Okay, so let me ask another question. Let me ask either additional questions or another attempt of what makes sense. Try to get to the root cause. Don't stay in the upper level, the root cause. And then once you understand the root cause, ask some additional questions. Would it be okay? And if they already know, if you found out all the details because they were telling you all the details, you ask permission to reframe it. Is it okay if I kind of reframe or make sure I can repeat what's happened to make sure I'm on the same page? Would that be okay with you? Yes, great. You want to get some small yeses at the very beginning because it starts igniting collaboration. You don't want to debate. You don't want to be fighting. You don't want to become submissive, but more a collaborative approach between you two. And so those are the 3 steps of inquisitive validation. And this could be with anything that's going on. An example of people that are upset because of pricing. It makes complete sense. You want to make sure what makes sense. What do people are really upset about when it's about pricing? It's value. It's like, am I going to see the results from the money that I'm spending? So a sentence about it makes complete sense that you want to make sure you're getting the value out of every dollar worth. Did I get that right? Yes, you betcha. Great. And then you can continue. So that second sentence of it makes complete sense that utilize it whenever you're dealing with somebody who's upset or there's an objection or a concern, and go to the root cause. When you find out what the root cause is, then we can move forward to the solution. If we stay with the I don't love you, Dad, then we're not going to get to the solution. So I invite you this week to take advantage of inquisitive validation. Beware of your fight or flight. First, recognize, am I a fighter or do I usually flee from the situation? And then as soon as that gets triggered, that you want to be able to, when a concern comes up or anger comes up, that you want to attack it, don't. Slow it down, use reason, and then ignite reason in the patient or the client, because you are acknowledging them and validating the right thing. You're not validating the wrong thing by saying, I can't believe they haven't answered. I can't believe, don't throw them under the bus. Acknowledge the root cause. I'd love to hear how it goes this week. Send in your examples and experiences as you use validation in these situations.